I'm about to sell part of my book of business. How should I figure out how much it's worth? Woo! Okay, I love this. And I love that you have a business opportunity to sell for hopefully greater value than what you put into it, because 1 + 1 = 3. If you can sell for something greater than what you put into it, I mean, man, isn't that what half a business is all about? Um, so, so for starters, let's get clear on the definition of value. The fair market value of a business or a business segment, nobody really knows, because there's not really a quote unquote right answer or a true way to calculate it. The only time that you ever really know what the fair market value of a business is in the split second after two willing participants, a buyer and a seller, have engaged in a transaction to buy/sell that business or that business segment. From that point on, the value of it changes. So, okay, that it seems incredibly non-helpful and is like using the dictionary to figure out how to spell a word. What I'm illustrating here is that it may seem arbitrary and more a matter of negotiation and influence and your selling ability than anything else. However, if part of your selling strategy includes data, then a certified valuation analyst could be a huge asset to you in selling your business, or selling, in this case, your book of business or your business segment. And part of what you want to consider is the role of predictability, the role of risk. Risk goes up, selling price goes down. So risk goes down, selling price goes up. And what is there to reduce risk but establishing a predictable pattern? So if you, for example, if you have a business that has more recurring revenue streams and fewer discrete projects, that drives up the sales value, drives up the sales price of the business. Because the predictability is higher, risk is lower, and when risk is lower, selling price is higher. So that's an example of something worth considering. And if you're going to do a calculation to support you in your negotiations, so your sales price doesn't seem just incredibly arbitrary, which is less likely to result in an actual successful sale, then you can shore it up with, look, 80% of my business is recurring. And history shows that clients stay with us for 36 months on average. Okay, great. Not only do you have that as a selling point, but if you have clear data about your gross margin, which is your revenue minus direct costs, meaning any expenses that you incur directly because you have this revenue coming in, not rent, but let's say you're in a service industry and you're paying someone's salary to specifically work on that project. That person's salary is a direct cost. So the revenue minus direct costs give you that gross profit, and a gross margin is just a percent. It's the gross profit as a percent of gross revenue. So if you have really solid data on those gross margins, then you can have, where you have strong data and a pattern in history, what does the brain have a natural inclination to do but to project this into the future? Take advantage of the principle of inertia. And you can say to the buyer, as long as you don't mess this up, this is what's happening right now. And it's really hard to mess up because it's not dependent on my personal charisma, you might say. So if you're preparing your business for sale or your business segment for sale, you definitely want customer relationships, patient relationships, client relationships that are not as dependent on a relationship with you personally. So build a team. There are a lot of techniques. That's a different question, but how to increase the value of my business before a sale, and you want to start doing that 3 to 5 years in advance. But all of this speaks to how much is it worth? Well, how does your business rank right now on predictability? How much does your business rank on, is that revenue really dependent on who you are and what your charisma is and what your personal relationships are. Those are some quick things to think about in determining how much it's worth. The other thing to consider is if you have revenue streams and you're going to sell it today, you may want to consider the present value of those future revenue streams. And you know what? There's a function in Excel that can give you that. I learned about the present value concept in business school, and I am really glad I don't have to do those calculations by hand. But there's a formula in Excel that'll give it to you as long as you put in a reasonable interest rate, which should be higher for greater risk and lower for lower risk, and can give you a way to, it's really a negotiation support tool, a way to say, if you buy this from me now, this is what it's worth to me today. What's that profit I would get on this? And profit that I'll have in the future if I hang on to this business. So if you want it from me, you're going to have to at least compensate me for my profit, if not some kind of multiple of that. So those are my thoughts about that, and just map out what those revenue streams are for a reasonable period of time. You're not going to say, well, if I hang on to this business for the next 20 years, I'll make this gross profit. That's not reasonable. The business environment is going to change in 20 years. So look ahead for, let's say, 1 to 3 years, depending on the industry and a lot of other factors. And you can consider among those factors how long your clients typically stay with you.